So in today's video, we're going to be checking out the new Savage X from HPI. Now, this is a 1/8 scale, 4-wheel drive, brushless, 6S capable, short wheelbase monster truck. And dare I say that this is actually the original stunt truck. That's right, HPI had it first, ladies and gentlemen, and this guy has had a massive facelift, a whole bunch of changes, and I cannot wait to show it to you. So let's get out of the box and have a look at it. So first things first, we're going to go through everything that you get when you take one of these out of the box. Of course, you get the truck fully assembled and ready to go. You have your radio over here, and you get some spare bits and pieces, and of course some user manuals and things like that, which we'll go through very quickly. There are no batteries and chargers included with this. Of course, this is pretty standard for a brushless ready to run. Now, the first thing in my hand here is this little bag that I've cut open. Obviously, it's just so I can show you what you actually get. First thing here is actually some foam padding, which I'm sure will be for the battery trays to kind of help pack up the batteries that you fit in there. Also have a bag full of spare bits and pieces. We've got preload spacers, spring retainers, shock rod ends. There's obviously a body post in there, and then you've got the servo horns as well. So a few little plastic bits to keep as spare, which is kind of handy. And then the last couple of items in this bag are a turnbuckle key, and you also have a hex key to help remove the wheels from the car. And there's also a small plastic little piece as well to help you work on the vehicle. There are no Allen keys or any other tools of any kind. So flipping this over, we can open up this little bag, which is actually the big bag of the lot, to get all the manuals and literature out of here, which I know a lot of you like to go through. So some spare stickers, which I'm sure will probably come in handy for some people. The interesting thing is that this body actually has a plastic grille like this mounted on it, and these little things here, which are these bits that go on the bonnet here as well, they're plastic pre-mounted as well. So they give you the stickers. I suppose maybe you get another body, you can use these, I don't know. But that's kind of cool that they've included those. Now this white kind of sheet, this is the guarantee or warranty for the vehicle, and it goes through, it's got multiple languages, so it goes through all the stuff in here. Some really good bedtime reading there for a lot of you. We have the Connect with HPI sheet, which is, you kind of use a QR code and log into their website and all that sort of stuff. So you can do that at your leisure. And then last but not least, but probably one of the more important things, is of course the user manual. And I gotta say, I kind of flicked through this a little bit. I'm really impressed with the manual itself. Like, it is a quality booklet, very nicely illustrated. It's got all exploded views everywhere, part numbers galore, parts lists, maintenance schedules, how to turn things on, how to work it, what all the switches and buttons do, how to do your maintenance on your vehicle. Like, really comprehensive, very good manual. This is something that you definitely want to keep in a safe place in case you need to do some maintenance on the car. Now, the radio is a really good radio, and it's one that I've had on the channel before. It's actually really nice to hold in the hand. It's got the big drop down wheel on here, which is really comfortable to use. It's got the usual trimmings, plus it also has throttle and steering endpoints up here. And the way that you adjust those is by grabbing the little tool that's tucked in on the battery tray, and you can see it only runs on 4 AA's. This little tool comes out here, and then you can adjust your steering endpoints and your throttle endpoints just there. So that just simply pops back in there. Slide that back over the top, lock it into place, and away you go. You got your reverse trims on the front here, so reverse switches just there for all 3 channels. Collapsible antenna, which I know looks a little bit dated nowadays. I usually never really pop this guy up unless I'm driving really far away. Just for general bashing, this can stay down for the most part. You have steering dual rates here as well, throttle and steering trims over here, a third button switch for a third channel. Bind button is up the top here in case you need to rebind to the truck. On and off switch back here, and that pretty much sums everything up with this guy. A really nice radio for ready to run. I mean, when this was released, I have no doubt that this would have been one of the nicer radios out there, and kind of ahead of its time. But with the collapsible antenna, it is starting to show its age a little bit. But without a doubt, as far as features goes and comfort levels, this is definitely one of the better ready to run radios you'll find on any RTR today. And here we are for the main event. Now, before we get stuck into the nitty gritty of this guy, I do want to point out a couple of things. Number one, I want to give a big shout out to HPI for sending out this truck for review. I really do appreciate the support of the channel so far, and it really shows that they have confidence in the product if they're going to be sending something out to me, because you guys know that I'm going to be pointing out some of the good things about this truck as well as some of the negatives, and some of the things that obviously HPI probably still need to do a little bit of work on. But it's all constructive criticism. They've done a lot of work on this truck. There's a lot of positives here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys think of it, and obviously how the general public is going to think of this truck as well once they start to get their hands on it. The other thing I want to point out is that this is actually my first 1/8 scale Savage truck. I've got the Savage XS, which is the little baby one, but this is my first sort of experience with a really big one. Now, I've driven a couple in the past. I've had my hands on them before, and of course I sold several through the shop, but this is my first time actually owning one of these, and I hope that I can do this truck justice, not just for HPI, but also the enormous following that exists out there in the RC community when you have a truck that has that name on the side of the body, because Savage has been around for so long. It's got such a huge following that I have no doubt there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be paying attention to what HPI do now and in the future with these trucks, because for the longest time these were the duck's guts, so to speak. You had to have a Savage if you wanted to be like play with the big boys, and this is it. This is probably the smallest of the 1/8 scale versions, but definitely not lacking in all the features and toughness and just the overall caliber that it carries with that name. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's first of all start off by showing you all the body, I suppose, give you a bit of a spin around, and you guys can have a bit of a look at how this thing kind of looks. You can see how that cage is kind of bolted on there. There's our battery trays. And there's the top of the truck, which has these like little plastic things that are glued on there, or not glued, but they got body pins underneath. You got a plastic grill on there as well, and then of course underneath you have this kind of like, I suppose it's a bit of a fresh look underneath, which looks really nice too, by the way. And I've just pushed the body through there as I was handling that, but it looks really nice. The body itself, some people are going to like it, some people are going to hate it. I know it's not going to be to everyone's taste. I think it's a positive change compared to the old style body that they used to have. I think that this is actually a good move forward. It's probably a little wider than I would have preferred. I prefer bodies that kind of, allow a little bit more of a narrow look to it and give you more suspension travel, and you're less likely to get the tires to rub on the body and stuff. So, you can always change the body out later on if you want to. It does have adjustable body posts. Okay, now, one of the first criticisms I'm going to have is going to be with the body pins. This may seem really trivial for a lot of people, but these body pins are a bit hard to kind of take out. So I find that I take one of them out and then I use that to yank the rest of them out. I kind of wish that they had, the little kick up at the end of the body pin, just to make it a bit easier to get them out. But yeah, that's probably the only thing that's a bit of a problem. Putting them back in is also equally hard, if not more so. The body itself, I'll take this out of here, and we can see how it's all kind of finished there, how everything is done. We've got mirrors here. Now this is just a sticker on the mirror, it's not actual glass or anything, and it's bolted on really tight to the body. So I don't know if these are going to snap off or if they're going to tear through the body, but it does have a nice big support in there, so we'll see what happens. You've got body pins kind of holding the rest of these plastic components in place. So overall the body's not bad. I mean, it's not the thickest body I felt, but with all the right angles and everything, it kind of adds to its rigidity. And of course with this support on the back here, it kind of helps a little bit keeping its stiffness. But where the bed is here, it's a little bit flimsy, I have to say, especially when this cage doesn't hit the top of the body, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But that's the body in a nutshell. Let's move on to the truck and have a good look at how they've done this. Very nice. Push button on the ESC, receiver box at the front here, slipper clutch down the back. It doesn't have a center diff from what I can see, so it's just a slipper clutch. We've got a 4274 2200 kV brushless motor. I believe that this system might be a rebranded Hobbywing system, because going by the size of the bullets and the push button on the ESC and everything, The KV of the motor, it could be a Max 8. That's my guess. But that's a good thing, right? Because Max 8, as I've proven many times, is actually a very good system. Now, moving on to the wheels and tires. I love these wheels and I love these tires. I have a very strong feeling that these tires are going to do extremely well on the BMX track where I run all these cars. I think that type of fine gravel, these tires would just kind of complement that perfectly, based on the experience I've had with other tires with similar tread, you know, from Proline and so forth. Now you'll notice it kind of looks like this has got like a two-tone wheel and the edges of this is a different color, but it's really not. It's the way that they've chamfered the edges of everything. The light kind of reflects through it, and it kind of gives you the impression that you've got two tones, like a light gray edging on the wheel, but that's not the case at all. It's all black. And yeah, rubber compound feels nice and soft. 17mm hexes. Love the wheels, love the tires. Let's move on to the suspension. Suspension is not too bad. The truck does bottom out, which is good, because you don't want these shocks to bottom out before the truck does. So that's a good thing. I will say that they kind of feel a little bit oversprung or perhaps under dampened. And it does feel like the rear needs a couple of preload spaces, because when it kind of sits down naturally, you can sort of see that the rear is going to squat when you actually throttle. So I might put a couple of small preloads in the back just to lift that rear end up a little bit so it doesn't squat down so much. So especially after, you know, you put some batteries in here, the whole thing is going to squat down a little bit more. Adjustable body post, as I said earlier. Now the shocks, since we're talking about suspension, the shocks are one thing that I know a lot of people have criticized the release of this truck on, because they are essentially the same shocks as they were before. They're still plastic body. They are big bore shocks, but they're still using preload spacers, which is a bit old tech. A lot of the newer shocks have got aluminium bodies. They got threaded bodies as well, so it's nice and easy kind of to compress your springs and adjust ride height and things like that. But here we're still using preload spacers. At the end of the day, how this is done is irrelevant to how it works. As long as it works properly and the suspension works and the shocks don't smash, that, you know, they last, they don't leak, and it just does the job, whether it's preload spacers or not. I'm not really big fussed on that. I mean, yes, industry standard by today's standards, you know, 2021, a lot of RCs that are on the market use aluminium bodies with threaded, you know, spring collars to kind of adjust. But yeah, as long as this works, it's kind of fine. I do feel that they could update this, but as long as it works fine, and that's what matters. Now, new front and rear bumpers on this guy too. So you got the rear bumper there, and you've got the front bumper there, but they still use this old design where these can actually pop out of the side here. So this is something that I think they need to adjust in the future. But we'll talk more about that in the wish list. However, they have captured now the hinge pins. So now these are no longer holding the hinge pins in place. It's more for the support of the bumper itself, which is positive, right? They've fixed the problem which was with the hinge pins coming out. And I remember a couple of friends that I knew that had the original Savage, they'd put a couple of zip ties across here to stop this from kind of like splitting open and letting the hinge pins fly out. So don't have to do that anymore, but I think the zip ties might still be called into action to obviously help support any impacts on the bumpers. So that's something that they probably need to address in the future. Now, let's move on to the battery trays as we wrap this up. The battery trays are a really nice design. I like what they've done here. One quick little twist of that top tab and this cover kind of comes off, drops down, and you can see where your battery is going to go. With a single Velcro strap, you can hold that guy in place. Of course, this does come with the T-style connectors or Deans, which is a bit of a criticism that I've already put forward to HPI. Who knows, maybe in the future we may see that change, but for now it just comes with Deans. I mean, I'm going to change them out anyway regardless of what they put in there, but it would be nice to see maybe an XT90 in here or something like that. Now, in regards to these battery trays, I've managed to put a variety of different batteries in here, and they all fitted and they all worked. I think I tried some hard case, I tried some big soft case 8000 milliamp ones. I tried all sorts of different batteries and they all seem to work quite well. So you shouldn't have any problems finding batteries to fit in this guy. And then of course you got those foam blocks as well to kind of help you stop the thing from sliding backwards and forwards, or you can sort of cut up your own foam if you like. So we'll tuck that away, that goes in there, one twisty tab, and that's it. And that is the battery tray in a nutshell. Now underneath, this little cover here is very easy to access. If you need to access your steering servo, which is at the front, or anything like that, there's 2 screws on this side, 2 screws on this side. This cover comes off, and yeah, you then have full access underneath there. These oval kind of holes just here, this is for your motor mount to adjust your gear mesh. And then there's a couple more screws back here as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So that kind of wraps everything up in a nice little bow with the HPI Savage. We got the little kind of handle sort of roll cage there. You got this new body, you got beautiful tires, and for some reason one of these holes on the body post is just slightly off. That's pretty much it. All right, let's move on to the wish list. Now I've come up with about 7 things on my wish list that I think HPI can work on and improve upon when they do future releases of this truck, or perhaps they can do some rolling updates as time goes on. But this may not only apply to the Savage X, but it may also apply to the Savage XL, and of course it also applies to the Nitro version. There is one or two things here that kind of exclusive to the electric, but a lot of this is actually applicable to the Nitro version as well. Okay, so let's get into it so we can get out of here nice and quick. The first thing that I'm going to be putting on the wish list is a body support and roof skids. Now, there is no body support in the center of the actual body itself, so that handle that's in the middle there doesn't actually reach the roof of the body, and there's nothing really to kind of lock into it or do anything like that. So what happens is when you have an upside down landing, all of that impact is going to go straight into the rear here and into the front body post. There's really nothing to help the body. And I can see, I don't know if you pick this up on camera, but the rear here kind of bulges up, and I can see these body posts eventually working their way through the through the body itself. So yeah, some roof skids and kind of like an internal cage that will lock in to that handle here would make a lot of sense. And to be honest, there's actually a couple of dimples on the body here. You can see them there, and there's another one at the front, and there's one over here somewhere, and there's another one back here. And it's as if I think these were meant to have roof skids on, but maybe HPI didn't have time to finish it and before release, or maybe it could be an optional part they could be working on in the future. I don't know, I haven't been told anything. So this is very interesting. Like I think having the roof skids on here, then it would sort of like have an internal cage that would lock onto that handle, would make a lot of sense to me, and it would definitely help protect the body, because let's face it, we're all going to land on our roof at some point. You're going to take a big jump and you're going to zig instead of zag, and you're going to have a bit of a brain fart or whatever, and then before you know it, bang, the thing slams on its roof and you've wrecked your body. So I think that's a definite improvement there that can be done. Wheelie bar. As you can tell, there's no wheelie bar with this truck, and I think a truck that's a short wheelbase, runs on 6S, and is as powerful as this thing is, it kind of makes sense to have a wheelie bar, because let's face it, 95% of the time this thing's going to be probably on 2 wheels, and the other 5% is probably going to be on its roof. So I think a wheelie bar is a given. I don't think it would cost them that much to include a wheelie bar on a truck like this. Bumper supports, of course, as I covered off earlier, these bumper supports kind of need to be improved upon here, because as this takes impacts, as you can see there, as it takes hits, you can see the bumper kind of, these things kind of flex out, and the bumper, I mean, if that's the intention, if that's HPI's plan to have this work like this, then I guess success. But I don't think it needs to be that way. I think there's something here that needs to be improved upon. They've given us new bumpers, but I think these bumper supports need to be improved upon. So that's another one. XT90 connectors. I think by today's standards, Dean's is a good 10 years old now. Like, people should have stopped using Dean's about 10 years ago. On anything above, say, 3S. I mean, you can probably get away with 4S if it's not an overly powerful system. You're not putting a lot of load on there. But honestly, Dean's on a 6S machine, that's just too much 2012 for me, or 2011. I think that, yeah, XT90s is the way to go. Would love to see some beefier connectors on a truck like this. Now, motor mount adjustment. This is one that I kind of skimmed over very quickly earlier. And as you'll see here, there are a couple of screws there that you undo to adjust your motor mount, and there are 2 more screws back here. There's one hidden under that hole there, and another one hidden kind of on an angle on the bottom hole there. And my criticism here is that they've given us 2 elongated holes, or oval style of holes here, for us to be able to adjust our motor mount, but they haven't done the same on the back 2 screws. So when you undo these screws, if you can actually get to the 4th one, once you make your adjustment, those screws may not be lined up to those holes again. These ones will, but not those ones. And I don't know why they haven't done elongated holes here as well for the motor mount adjustment. So I think they've missed something there. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, maybe they can correct me. But from what I can gather, 2 of those screws are going to be easier to get to, the other 2 not so much. Now the second last thing on the list here are shocks. Now, as I said earlier, these are big boss shocks, and as long as they work well, I'm not really fussed if they're made out of plastic and they got preload spacers. But when you look at the standard of today, the industry standard of today, pretty much every 1/8 scale RC that's serious about what they're doing will have aluminium body chocks with threaded bodies, and you'll just have a little spinny collar that you can adjust your shocks with. So I think that's something that maybe HPI can look at doing in the future. I don't think it's a huge necessity at the moment, unless these things are like leaking and they don't perform well. That's a different story. Then they need to put that at the top of the list. But as long as they work okay, you know, I think the motor mount screw issue is probably a bigger deal. I think the wheelie bar probably takes better priority, and some kind of support for the body would probably take priority for me as well. I'm not too fussed about the shocks, but everyone's different. You might have that at the top of your list regardless. And now the last thing is just the body pins and maybe some tethers to hold the body pins. Now, a lot of companies are actually, you know, you look at T-Brand, for example, they've got their own sort of clip system. They don't even use body pins anymore on a lot of their bodies. You got Armour that use tethers. We've got Tinkorelli that use tethers. And there's probably other brands out there that do. Alosi does them as well. So I think HPI need to maybe introduce that for us too. Some nicer body pins. There's tethers to hold the body pins in place. And I think we're done as far as, you know, the whole thing with the body, roof skids, all of that. And that's pretty much it for my wish list. So let's wrap this one up so we can all go home. So that wraps up this unboxing of the HPI Savage X. If you guys enjoyed it and you got something out of it, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, check out the video description down below. I'll have links in there to the HPI website, as well as where you can get one of these here in Australia. And of course, links to my social media pages. I thank each and every one of you for watching, and I'll be speaking to you all next time.